Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we are going to find out why is Saranda Forest of Jharkhand in news lately, okay? Now the notes that I will be using in this session, in case if you want to download them, you can go to this particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live and download them. And while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. So let us understand why Saranda Forest of Jharkhand in news. Now, recently, Supreme Court of India, the apex court directed, not requested, it directed the Jharkhand government to declare Saranda Forest as a wildlife sanctuary. Now, this case particularly highlights conflicting issues. First of all, Saranda Forest is a biodiversity hotspot and it is essential for any government to allow for environmentally conserve a particular biodiversity hotspot. So this was first value. Another value is while ensuring conservation, there is a possibility that tribal rights might be denied, or there is a possibility that mining interest or mining activities in the region needs to be stopped. So this highlights conflicting values. First of ecological conservation versus development imperatives. Ecological conservation versus socio-economic development of tribal communities, right? So this is the issue that we are going to address in our today's video. But before moving forward, it becomes very essential for us to discuss what is Saranda Forest, where is it located, what kind of flora and fauna species it is best known for, right? Now, Saranda, the word of Saranda Forest itself means the land of 700 hills. And this forest is located in the West Singhbhum district of the state of Jharkhand. Now, the total area of this forest is somewhat more than 850 square kilometers, where 816 square kilometers is a reserved forest, whereas rest is designated as a protected area. Now the flora or the kind of tree species that are available here, the most notable one are the sal forest, because this is one of the India's densest sal forest available. The biological name of sal forest is Shorea robusta, right? So this is the most important floral species of the region, sal forest. Now, what are the important animals that are available in the Saranda forest? Now, Saranda is best known for its elephants. In addition to that, it is also known for its four-horned antelope, sloth bears, and other diverse bird as well as butterfly species. Now, the Saranda forest itself falls into three major elephant corridors that connect Jharkhand with neighboring states of Chhattisgarh and Odisha. In addition to that, although tigers are not the resident of this particular forest, but they were once sighted. Similarly, it has been recognized by the Wildlife Institute of India as a biodiversity hotspot, which I've already highlighted, and an elephant habitat. So, conservation of Saranda forest becomes essential for what? Conservation of sal-trees, conservation of elephants, as well as other important species that inhabit this area. Okay, so this was Saranda forest. Now, let us talk about the background of this issue. Why this matter reached the apex court of our country. First of all, back in 2022, a petitioner filed a petition with the National Green Tribunal. That petitioner highlighted that the Saranda Forest area was already a game sanctuary at the time of undivided British rule, right? So after the enactment of Wildlife Protection Act in 1972, this forest should have been deemed as a wildlife sanctuary, but this did not happen. So that is why this petitioner filed their petition in the National Green Tribunal. And considering this case, the National Green Tribunal directed the Jharkhand government to consider declaring Saranda as a wildlife sanctuary or even an eco-sensitive zone. But do you think this happened? The answer is no. Now, even though there was no official proof or no record available of whether this area was a game sanctuary at the time of Britishers, but National Green Tribunal did consider the rich biodiversity of Saranda. And highlighting this rich biodiversity, it recognized the need for protection of Saranda forest. And that is why it gave an order to the Jharkhand government. But Jharkhand government delayed notification, and that is why this matter reached the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court even gave a contempt warning to the Jharkhand government if it does not follow the directions or orders of Supreme Court. Now, while considering this case, a bench of Supreme Court, which was led at that time or at presently led by the Chief Justice of India, they ordered the Jharkhand government to consider notifying about 315 square kilometers of the Saranda forest as a wildlife sanctuary. But the state of Jharkhand or the government of Jharkhand submitted a smaller draft. In its draft, the Jharkhand government stated that yes, we are going to designate Saranda Forest as a wildlife sanctuary, but the area of designation of this sanctuary would be lesser than what the Supreme Court has ordered. Supreme Court ordered more than 31,468 hectares of land to be declared as wildlife sanctuary. On the other hand, Jharkhand government stated that we are willing to declare this area as a wildlife sanctuary, but for a smaller 25,000 hectare area. And the reason why Jharkhand government did this was to protect tribal interest or the tribal rights of the region. Now you need to understand, tribals in most part of the country, they depend on forest resources, particularly the minor forest produce for their livelihood. So in case if you are going to designate a particular area as a protected area, there is a possibility that tribals might be denied the right to seek or harness these minor forest produce, which depends on their livelihood, right? Now that is why, as Jharkhand government was unwilling to follow the direction given by Supreme Court warned the Jharkhand government and sought a written undertaking from them that likh ke do mujhe that you will declare this region and how much area that I have told you as a wildlife sanctuary, right? But now this case also brought another stakeholder in the region, and this another stakeholder is the PSU known as Steel Authority of India Limited. Now at the start of this session, I told you this is an area known for its iron reserves, right? So the mining of iron ore activities, it also goes in the area where Saranda Forest is located. So the Steel Authority of India approached Supreme Court, highlighted that our mining interest, the reasons or the regions where we mine iron ore needs to be protected, and Supreme Court has clarified that existing valid mining licenses won't be affected in case this area is declared as a wildlife sanctuary. So this particular slide highlights two issues. First is the socio-economic development of tribals, which is necessary for their livelihood purposes, and another one is the economic development or mining activities of the region that goes on. So we are going to discuss these two parameters, the access of tribals of forest and access of companies to mine their natural resources from an area, right? So these are the two important pillars that we are going to discuss. First, let us talk about mining and environmental degradation. Now this area I told you is rich in iron ore, manganese and other important resources like coal, right? Now Saranda in particular holds about 26% of India's total iron ore reserves. So it becomes essential for India for its mineral security to mine these reserves. Now you need to understand, mining is an intensive economic activity that negatively impacts the region's economy or region's ecology. Now mining, be it legal or illegal, has led to habitat fragmentation, and this habitat fragmentation has led to species decline in the region. Not only that, it also creates intensive environmental pollution. Now there was a committee formed at the time of UPA government known as MB Shah Commission. This commission studied the kind of mining activities that goes on in the region and concluded that there is an illegal iron ore extraction that is going on, which has been worth more than 14,000 crore. So this particular report by the MB Shah Commission highlights that the revenue of the government was not realized, particularly due to existence of illegal mining activities. Another report that it highlighted that there is a negative correlation between mining activities and biodiversity. So if mining activities increase in the region, this region would witness less biodiversity, and conversely is true. So that is why you understand, due to both illegal and illegal mining activities, there has been a decline in mammal population, bird as well as butterfly population wherever the mining activities are going on. Similarly, elephants, I told you, are one of the important habitats of the region, whereas elephant, due to the fragmentation of their habitats, they have been forced to migrate to neighboring states, and this has been the key highlight of why mining activities can't go on unchecked in the region, because this is an environmental hotspot and we need to environmentally conserve these areas. Now the second aspect that we are going to talk about is the existence of tribal rights and how declaring this area as a wildlife sanctuary might bring concerns to their socio-economic development. First of all, you need to understand this region falls under the 5th schedule of Indian Constitution, and this region is a home to many important tribal communities of our country, be it Hok tribes, Munda tribes and other Adivasi groups, even including the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Now, the Jharkhand government has argued in the line of tribal interest. Obviously, they would do that. And the sanctuary declaration, according to the Jharkhand government, could criminalize traditional livelihoods like seeking farming, forest produce, particularly the minor forest produce like tendu leaves, which the tribals depend on for their livelihood activities. Now, this may also conflict with other legislations that have been passed by Parliament of India. First of all, there is a very important right, FRA right, Forest Rights Act of 2006. It says that the tribal regions or the forest dwelling communities, they have right to seek minor forest produce in the region, and they can even market them. This particular right gives both individual and community rights to the local forest habitats. Similarly, there is also an act known as Panchayat Extension to Schedule Areas Act, where the laws passed by panchayats are applicable to the tribal areas, but with certain amendments. So this highlights that yes, we need to conserve tribal rights, we need to provide them with avenue for their socio-economic development. But as I told you, this declaration of wildlife sanctuary might lead to criminalization of traditional livelihood activities which the tribes depend on the forest for. So what are the governance dimensions that we can imagine in this particular instance? Now, first, this highlights conflicting priorities. What are these conflicting priorities? First priority is that you need to obviously conserve this important biodiversity hotspot. But while conserving the same, it also demolishes or negatively impacts the prospects of economic development in a region, right? Particularly the development of tribes, particularly the development of mining activities, right? Now, there is also a possibility that tribal livelihoods might be negatively impacted. As I told you, if tribes are not allowed to access the forest areas for harnessing their resources, how would they manage their livelihoods? So this is another problem. The third problem is that the state itself, be it the state of Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, a fair share of their revenue also comes from mining activities. So if you stop mining activities, which is very necessary in the Saranda Forest, I told you it hosts 26% of total India's iron ore reserves. So that would negatively impact the state revenue, particularly that of Jharkhand government. And that is why it is conflicting with national biodiversity goals. Indian government, Jharkhand government, both have highlighted that yes, preservation of biodiversity is necessary. But when it comes with at the cost of state revenue, this becomes a big ethical dilemma. So all these priorities highlights there exists a ethical dilemma where you have to prioritize one value over the other. So whether you prioritize conservation, ecological preservation, or biodiversity goals, or on the other hand, you prioritize economic development, tribal livelihood, and state revenue on the other. So this is a classical case of ethical dilemma. Now, in addition to all these ethical dilemmas, these case also highlights multiple different governance dimensions. First of all, it highlights that there has been somewhat ineffectiveness in states' adherence, state compliance with the directions given by judiciary, be it tribunals like National Green Tribunal or be it even the Supreme Court. Similarly, there has been a sustainable mining plan that has been denominated by the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. Now, this sustainable mining plan highlights that there are some areas which are go areas where you can mine with certain restrictions, and there are certain no-go areas where you're not allowed to mine at all. But this also restricts the mining activities in the go area, where the maximum amount of mining or resource extraction you can do is about 64 million tons per annum of ores, right? So this needs to be strictly enforced by the government. Now, what is a way out of this problem? This also becomes very essential. First of all, as I told you, this is an important biodiversity hotspot. So we need to balance conflicting values. We need to balance conservation of the same with the right to seek livelihood, particularly of the tribal communities. And here, the role or implementing the co-managing of conservation models is essential, where you can take help of tribal communities and make them aware of the necessity of conserving the forest. Similarly, you also need to carry out ecological restoration. First of all, due to unchecked both legal and illegal mining activities, it has led to destruction of forest. So we need to rehabilitate the mined areas, and at the same time, we need to strengthen the elephant corridor so that they are not forced to move out to other states. Also, there is also need for sustainable mining governance. We need to ensure strict enforcement of environmental impact assessment. We need to cap the existing resource based extraction, and we also need to have a mechanism that will transparently monitor the actions of both government and private parties. Similarly, institutional accountability is must. Accountability of government, accountability of tribunals is essential even to the judiciary, so that one interest is not taken over the other interest, as I've told you, because both are conflicting interests and we can't prioritize one of them. We need to balance between them. That is balancing conservation and livelihood. Similarly, it is also essential for us to integrate or co-develop this area essentially, so that the perspective of sustainable development is taken forward. So in order to do that, we can promote ecotourism activity, we can promote livelihood diversification. Some of the tribals who are dependent on forest resources, we can skill train them so that they can get jobs elsewhere. And also we need to bring out compensation scheme, that in case this kind of designation excludes the tribal, they have some other means for getting their livelihood, right? So this is what was about Saranda Forest. Now, before solving the PYQs, I have some important announcement. This important announcement deals with the courses that we are going to offer. Now, right now, we are almost done with the month of October 2025, and students who are looking to give exams, particularly in 2027 and 2028, now is the best time for you to start preparing for this UPSC exam. I understand many of you have questions regarding where to get the support, where to get classes, where to get material. All of your doubts will be addressed if you take one of our courses. In our courses, we don't just provide you live classes, we also provide you test series, we also provide you one-to-one mentorship, and all of these are essential pillars for you to get selected. But the problem is that you have to adhere to these strict timelines. Okay, so if you take admissions in one of our courses, be it 2027 or in 2028, the batches would start few days from now, that is from 27th of October. You can still take admissions to these courses provided you use this code ATS Live. Now this code ATS Live helps you fetch maximum discounts on not just 2027 or 2028 courses, but on all the courses that are there on our website, including the optional subjects. So please keep that in mind. Now, there is a practice question, which is essentially a PYQ of 2080. How is National Green Tribunal different from CPCB? Please do let me know what is the correct answer. NGT has been established by an act, whereas CPCB has been created by an executive order, and what are the roles of these two bodies? Please do let me know the correct answer in the comment section. There is also PYQ in 2017, but that PYQ was not suiting our today's discussion, so I have modified that PYQ a little bit to suit our today's discussion. Okay, recently Supreme Court directed a state government to notify the Saranda Forest as a wildlife sanctuary, and the Saranda Forest is primarily known for which of the following feature? Which of the following feature do you think is the right answer? Can you guess? Both of the answers, I want you to solve it, and do let me know through the comments what is the right answer, and the ones who answer it correctly will get a thumbs up from my side. So this is all for today's video. Once again, if you want to download them, you can go to this Telegram channel, and if you have problems in locating this Telegram channel, you can always scan the QR code. Okay, so I'll see you again. Please have a very good night.